tomorrow's a deadline for players to opt out. What is your take on what you're hearing from your own team? Will you have more players on that list?
Yeah, Cheryl, we have no idea. I think right now the pulse of our team, we're in a really good place. We're kind of in a rhythm right now. You ask some of the guys how they're feeling in regards to the setup that we have here, and controlling what we can control is giving them a lot of space. And then also just talking through this whole procedure, everything about it. We've spent a lot of time into where we're at and how we go about it and the details of everything. And then we let them make their decision. But, I think for them, it's just to make the best decision for them. And then we fully support anybody that does that.
Dan?
Matt, what was your initial reaction when you learned that Doug Peterson had tested positive? And also, as you start easing into the practice side of things here in the next week or so, how are you juggling the sort of need to have meaningful practices while also understanding that there's going to be some things that are quote unquote dangerous or have some risk in them?
Yeah, Dan. So in regards to hearing about Doug, again, we all have to go into these days like anything can happen. And so when I heard that later on that night, I shot him a text just to make sure that he's doing okay and the family's okay. And he told me that he is. And so that was what's most important. So, just knowing that we're all here for one another. It's then in regards to the practices, again, every single day is different. We have a lot of these schedules that we're learning through as coaches as to what we can and can't do with the rules. But then on the front end, we educate everybody and we let everybody know, expect the unexpected. We're not talking about hamstrings and ankles and, soft tissue injuries or just colds. We're talking about the whole COVID deal. You just never know. Every single day for the rest of the season, we're going to, get a call and it's either, somebody's on the list or they're not. And we just have to have, I think, a bunch of contingency plans, and you got to try to always stay one or two steps ahead in this case. And whether that's practice schedules, these practice schedules are different. Shoot, we were up this morning just kind of, rehashing how we're going to go about with these new rules and what we can and can't do. And if you know that on the front end, you'll be all right.
Colleen?
Hey, Matt. I know you said last week you were planning to have a team meeting to kind of talk with the players about the need for them to act responsibly outside of the team facility when they're not around you guys and how that might affect the whole team. How did the players respond to the messaging? And also, have you talked to their families too about that yet?
Hi, Colleen. Yeah, we have. We had a good meeting via Zoom with all the families, everybody, every member, everybody that's in the different tiers. For their families, a bunch of kids, a bunch of wives, husbands, brothers, sisters were on the call and asked a lot of questions. We got a lot of good answers. And so for us, we just are understanding that we're taking this very seriously. The mask deal is real. It's, you hear, and this is my opinion, and just from what we see and what we hear, and you hear a lot of people say, well, you got to treat it like everybody has it. In my opinion, you got to treat like you have it, right? If you treat like you have it, you wear your mask, and it just the percentages of spreading it can be a lot lower. So when you treat like you have it, then that means everybody has their masks on in this building, and that's what you're seeing with, I think, a lot of the teams that are having low test rates with positive tests, and that's how we're going about it. And our players, to their credit, number one, they've come into camp in exceptional shape. We weren't sure how that was going to happen, just not knowing where they were and what they had to be able to work out in during the quarantine. But I'm just really proud of the players for the way that they came into shape. Well, now we have to stay healthy, and that's the soft tissue injuries, but that's also in the COVID world. And you do that by wearing a mask. Again, everybody's saying it. Just wear a mask. And everybody has different beliefs on the levels of 1 through 10 on where it's at. But if we just keep the simple rule of everybody wear a mask, that's the best way to go about it. And so that's what we're doing. And our guys have been really phenomenal with that. They see it. And we police each other too. So hey, if somebody doesn't have their mask up, it's usually not intentional. This is new to us. There's a lot of guys that haven't been used to wearing masks. And so whether it's a player, a coach, a staff member, we walk by and everybody in this building has the authority to tell you to get your mask up. And so we're well stocked, and that's the way we're attacking this thing.
Pat?
Hey, Matt, if it was one of your boys who was in his second year playing in the NFL, third year playing in the NFL, didn't have a big contract under his belt yet, what advice would you give them in determining whether or not to opt out? And what sort of conversations would it be if it was your own kid?
Yeah, well, really, all four of my boys are all going to have probably a different opinion, and that's okay. That's the best part of that. So I would say whatever they feel is the best thing for them, and then we'll go about attacking it with support in that direction. So if they choose to opt out, we're going to support you. If you choose to go forward, we're going to support you, and we're going to be very strict in regards to wearing masks and doing everything that we can to listen to what the experts say. And that's the one common denominator right now is wear a mask. And so I would support them in either direction. And I think that's what you've seen here with Eddie Goldman and Jordan Lucas, two really good people that had to make tough decisions. You know, they weren't easy decisions, and we had good conversations with them. And you can call both of them right now and find out the support that they have from us as an organization is 100% all in. And it's emotional. You know, it's not easy. If this isn't just something of a click of a button, I'm opting out. No, there's a lot of thought that goes into this for these guys. So we support them both ways.
JJ?
Hey, Matt, there's been some talk around the NFL and a couple teams, I think the Buccaneers and Saints have done this, of creating a voluntary bubble at a hotel. Is that something you and Ryan and Andre have talked about as a potential option?
We look at everything. I haven't heard that. I think for us, we feel really good right now with our quote unquote bubble that we have here. It feels very safe. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes to get this set up that we have. But also, JJ, we're growing too. I mean, if you came in here 5 days ago and looked at this complex at Hallis Hall and at Walter Payton Center, it's totally different than 5 days ago. We keep adding to make it better. Ryan and I joke it's like one of those wiffle balls that has all the holes in it everywhere. We keep finding holes and patching them up. And that's going to probably continue for the whole year. So if there's something that players bring to us or that we feel like we can keep ourselves safe in one way or another, we're going to do that. But education on the why. I'm a visualizer. Our players are visualizers. We'll show them pictures, you know, to make it simple and understand it. But again, it always comes back to when you're outside of this bubble of Hallis Hall, you need to be able to be smart and be selfless, not selfish. That's not just the players. I want to make that clear. They're understanding too when we're here. There's a lot of other people in this bubble right now that have the same accountability. When I go home, okay, when I go home to my house, I go home to an empty house. You know, and I have 4 sons that have friends and they got a lot of normalcy going on. That's not the case right now. That's a sacrifice that they know the rules of how that thing rolls. We all got to have that when we look at this thing to be able to risk mitigate.
Let's see. Hub, go ahead.
Hi, Matt. You know, I know your focus right now is on getting ready to play and win football games, but we're all kind of wondering just with what's going on in the world, how this is going to work. And I know you're doing everything you can to keep guys safe. Have you been given any kind of indication or any guidelines as to kind of where the line in the sand is, what could or might happen that could cause you to have to pause or even postpone the season?
Hey, Hub. No, we haven't. You know, we've been it feels good. I feel like almost this is day one, as crazy as that sounds for me as a head coach, with being able to get through the quote unquote team meetings of the standards and expectations of what we do here in our organization, because a lot of the chunk of time in the time that we get to meet has been on how we're going to go about focusing on COVID and risk mitigation. So as far as the what ifs and what could happen, we try to play out scenarios and just know that, you know, again, we could wake up tomorrow and have a totally different day as today, or we could expect something to happen on September 13th that's totally different for game one. But it just feels so far out that I think a lot of the people you talk to and a lot of us as coaches, we're just literally trying to get through the day with practice and meeting times, because Hub, it's different. This is not like any other year in so many different ways, whether it's lunch, how the weightlifting, the meetings, the things you can and can't do are so different that looking down the road too much, maybe I'm wrong, but it hasn't been there for us.
Dion.
Hey, Matt, in light of all of the new procedures and all the things that you're discussing, does it feel like the start of training camp? And what are you able to do work-wise, and how different is that pace, not having a preseason game to kind of think about?
Yeah. Hi, Dion. I would say this. So right now, we're doing all walkthroughs right now. And today was the first time that we're allowed to do a phase 2 ramp up with the rookies. So it's a little faster than walkthrough period on air. And it feels it's a combination essentially of the OTAs, right? So you have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. The phase 2 ramp up part, it really, I think, is smart. And the Players Association and the league did a great job in making sure that we do that. We ramp up the right way, and we prevent not only the COVID testing and positive negatives, but also injuries as well. And so we're slowly moving into it. They got the weight training that goes on. These guys haven't been with our strength coach at all this whole offseason. So all of that ties in together, and I like the pace. By the end of the way it's scheduled of the phase 2 and the walkthroughs, I feel like the guys mentally are going to have a ton of great mental reps. And when we put those pads on for the first time, they start thumping. I think it's going to be a really good plan.
Adam Johns.
Hey, Matt. As you got creative with your practice schedule, kind of planning it out and whatnot, when you look back at that simulated game that you held at night, like, what did you draw from that? Like, what can you use from that day, that night, that can be applied to now as you try to get creative and try to keep things very extremely competitive?
Sure. Yeah. So, Adam, what we do is last year we wanted to be able to have as many situational football plays as possible. You don't always get that in the preseason games. Sometimes maybe there's you go through 3 preseason games and you didn't have one backed up play where you got the -5 in, right? And that's a big part of football. You might not get as many short yardage and goal line reps that you want. So we can dictate that. And then we can also dictate and say, okay, listen, we're going to not go thud here. We're going to go live. And so you can control it, which I like. That was part of the reason why we liked doing that last year. The other part of it too is it gives them that element feel of, we're in a game now. And so by losing the preseason games, you're able to be able to have situations like that. If you come up with that, you can really hit every part of the different phases that you want to get good at and scheme.
Brad.
Hey, Matt, couple questions. First, any specific impressions of members of the rookie class, either drafted or undrafted, seeing as you've had them in the longest? And then can you overview how the right guard competition is going to work out and what your expectations are right there?
Yeah, sure. So, Brad, in regards to the rookies, again, this is like the next step from Zoom. I wish I could tell you more, but we're out here on the grass doing walkthroughs, and now we get to see when Cole Kmet answers every question the right way or Mooney answers every question the right way. Do they really know it, or do they got their cheat sheet in front of them? And now they get to break a huddle, run out, get set up, get lined up, and execute their route. So far from what I've seen in regards to the rookies that we have, there's been no coaches that have had any concerns with the way they're attacking these walkthroughs and these meetings. So that's good. We're not there yet where you can put on the pads. And again, you put that helmet on, you put the shoulder pads on, you put a defense across from you, and it really makes things even tougher. So that part is, we'll continue to watch. In regards to the right guard position with the Fetty and Rashad Coward, again, those guys are a little bit, meaning the vets are a few days behind. So they're still getting ramped up in the lifting and conditioning. We're meeting and doing our installs, and then we take it to the class on the grass, the walkthroughs, and literally what they're doing is breaking a huddle and going through their assignments. So we just see that as a competition where you got a guy with a lot of experience in Jermaine Ifedi versus a guy with not as much experience, but two really good guys that we have a lot of belief in, with an offensive line coaching, Juan Castillo, that believes heavily in both of them. So again, competition across the board. And I just think for them, just like other positions, we got to be really detailed with how we give reps and then how we evaluate that position.
All right, we got time for about two more. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Matt, can you go back to saying that the guys showed up in really good shape? I know you said you ended the voluntary virtual thing this offseason earlier because you wanted them to focus on training and getting ready for training camp. Like, do they look like a team that went through a standard, NFL offseason? And, like, what are you seeing from them that gives you that, confidence that they're all in great shape?
Yeah, Jeff. So you kind of hold your breath when you haven't seen these guys this whole time. I know what I was doing, and there's others too. And there's a lot more eating than there is working out over that quarantine. And so you never really know where these guys are at. But I think our guys, and I know our guys just from seeing them now, they made an executive decision as a whole that they're going to work their tails off and get in good shape. And if they are going to eat during the quarantine, they're going to do a lot of working out. And I could only see so many guys as I walked through the hallway when they first showed up for their physicals. And so I couldn't see everybody, but the ones that I happened to walk by was Akeem Hicks, who, I've seen 3 years now of showing up in training camp of where he's at. And all three have been very good, but I think this was the best one. I mean, he showed up in great shape, and I'm really proud of him. I mean, I know it's not easy. And then Cordero Patterson, he's the one that I walked by as well, and he was ready for me to ask him, how he's doing, because he looks good too. So there's more guys. There's a lot of other guys that I could tell you I'd be wasting your time, but that's why in general, when we as coaches and Ryan and I get together and talk, we discuss about, man, these guys really, they locked in now. They're in shape. They look really good. And that's just a credit to Jason Lascalzo and his staff for being able to give them a lot of information over the offseason and how to be able to do that.
All right, last one here, Mark Potash.
Hey, Matt, kind of along those lines, do you feel like everybody in the NFL is kind of in the same boat with regard to managing the COVID limitations? Or do you feel like, the way you've managed it, like having players stay in shape, the efficiency of the Zoom meetings, having players stay healthy, do you feel like that might in some way give you some kind of advantage, or at least allow you to hit the ground running more than the competition?
I hope so, Mark. I think when you really look back at this thing, all of us together, you go back to really when everything started, and everyone talks about the start of 2020 and what we've been through in the last 5 or 6 months. And it's been a lot. And then when you say, okay, the Chicago Bears, what have we done? Well, we've had some pretty hot topics that we've stuck together. And I think it could either pull you apart or it could pull you together. And you go into, just over the summer of just the discussion of that we had the 2-hour meeting together on the social injustice and how raw and emotional that was for us. And now these guys are doing Zoom meetings, and we have 25 guest speakers that can come in and talk to us that we can use moving forward. They learned how to use Zoom, and now all of a sudden you go into this COVID deal and where we're at here. This is a lot. It's emotional. There's families involved. There's a lot of big decisions involved. There's the business side of it. There's how are you going to take care of us type deal with the organization, with the players and management. And just from me and Ryan staying in constant communication with these guys over the offseason, I 100% believe that as tight as we were the last 2 years, we've become even tighter. And you see it on the football field. You see it the way you guys talk. I can look outside right now and see people social distancing and eating lunch and creating relationships. in between periods. And so you love that and you want to keep that going. But what's important is, right, we're dealing with a big issue with COVID now. And so are 31 other NFL teams, and to each their own. But what we can do, Ryan and myself and everybody else in this organization, is be able to lay a foundation of safety here as they're in this bubble. And if the players feel safe and they know you love them and they feel that love, then they're going to do everything in their power to do everything they can to get themselves right for September 13th. And I don't know how it'll end up being for us, but the one thing we need to do is we need to stay healthy. And if we stay healthy and we continue to follow the teams that are doing it the right way and we don't just let it slip, you always stay on top of the mask deal. You continue to keep social distancing. You do Zoom meetings when you can. You limit your team meetings. You look over at the Walter Payton Center and we have 100 people spread out over 120 yards. It's just it's pretty cool. And it's a credit to the people that work here. And then it's a credit to the players because they've responded really well to it. So I hope, Mark, all of that helps us become a better team, that we're not worrying about other things when we show up on September 13th against Detroit.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're streaming live on Facebook, broadcasting from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the great neighborhood of Jefferson Park. This is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. It's yours truly, Jerry Riles. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you love him. He's not over at Wrigley Field. He's not on the rooftops over there. He's not at Comiskey Park or the Guarantee Rate Field. He's not. No, he's in studios, ladies and gentlemen. You love him. And before we're out of here, no question about it, I'm sure we're going to get an opportunity to hear his point of view as far as high school football is concerned, being pushed to the spring.
March,
ladies and gentlemen, he is the one. He's the only. He's the marvelous one. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver? How are you, buddy?
It's nice and wet today.
Hey, take it easy.
Outside. And, I actually enjoyed the Blackhawks game yesterday. They won a game in Edmonton. That was pretty cool. And the Cubs just won a game, so things are underway. I'm just, the Marlins and the Phillies, it looks like it's going the way we thought, where it's going to be tough to finish the season, but we shall see.
Yeah, we shall certainly see. And you know what? It's interesting. We'll get an opportunity to talk Major League Baseball. If you want to join in, our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, the fastest hour in sports conversation. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and of course, the marvelous one, Lauren Cox, is en route. Hey, let me say this. Lauren, drive safely. I know you're certainly listening to us as you're driving in from the downtown Chicagoland area, the beautiful city of Chicago. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be safe. I want you to be careful out there. Of course, the marvelous one wants to make sure you guys all and girls stay in one piece. But, the Cubs were able to get the conclusion of the game in. There was a short rain delay over at the friendly confines, and they were finally able to get the game completed, and they come away with a victory.
A sweep.
They come away with a victory, so that was very good. But as I was driving in, Marvelous, and I'm sure you experienced it as well, the rains were coming down.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had a rain delay of 1 hour and 2 minutes, I believe. And they were able to complete the game with the funky second base runner in the extra innings.
Yeah, I'm still not used to or comfortable with that.
Well, I know on the radio, Pat Hughes was struggling with how to do a scorebook.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are struggling on how to, I guess do their scorecard because it's just different. Sure. There's no question about it. And for purists, baseball purists out there, you want things to remain, normal and want things to remain the same. But unfortunately, everything is affected by this pandemic, this COVID-19. But I do have to say this, man. The rain was coming down. Now, I went to church today. I'm a practicing Catholic, and I went over to St. Joseph the Worker. We stream on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're a Catholic and you miss Mass, you want to go to St. Joseph the Worker in Wheeling, or the YouTube page or the Facebook page, you certainly can check out today's Mass. But went out to breakfast with the family and everything over at Granny's in there, over in Wheeling. And then, I went home and started preparing for the show and making calls and doing everything, getting ready for the show. So I'm sitting out on the deck, and I got the computer going. I got my phone. I got everything, placed, and got my tea and everything. Sun was shining, and suddenly it started to sprinkle. So I take all of my belongings inside, and then lo and behold, the sun came back out. And I'm sitting out there enjoying everything. White Sox, congratulations to the White Sox with the sweep over the Kansas City Royals this weekend. Great performance by the boys. And I tell you, those bats are coming alive. They are hot, and they are coming alive. Yeah. But suddenly the clouds opened up, and the rain came down, man. It's just flood. No, marvelous. Here's the disappointing thing. Here's the bad thing. When I'm driving home from breakfast at Granny's over there in Wheeling, I got the sunroof up because it's hot and the sun is on. Hey, it's Sunday, nice and easy, getting ready. I'm pumped up. I'm all good.
Easy like Sunday morning.
Easy like Sunday morning. Well, that was only for a short spell because the rain spell came in. I parked the car outside on the street. Normally I put it in the garage. I had it on the street there, Marvelous, with the sunroof open. The rain came down.
I know the punchline. And
I forgot, silly me. I'm so, and I'm just enjoying the beautiful weather. And of course the rain came down. So I'm panicking, getting on my computer and everything in the house. I forget that the sunroof is open. So I get ready to leave. I go, oh my God, it's coming down in buckets. I go, oh my God, my sunroof is open. Yeah. My daughter goes, I love her to death. My daughter's sitting there. She goes, oh yeah, I saw the sunroof open. I go, what? I go, are you kidding me? Yeah. I go, I love you, Teresa. You're the best. I love you. I go, but when you see something, you got to say something. She goes, well, I went to sleep.
Hey, you probably need an interior car wash anyway.
Well, thank goodness I got the leather interior and I got the cloth and everything, so I wiped everything down and it was all good. But she went to sleep. I go, hey, Teresa, come on now. If it's your car, I guarantee you would have. She said, well, hey, it's not a big deal to me. But yeah, so we made it in. We're all good. Talk about we made it in and we're all good. It's good to see her lovely, her talented, her beautiful face, and I think she might have a little bit an extra edge for the show. But ladies and gentlemen, she's in studio. She's the one. She's the only. You love her. She's the fabulous Lauren Cox. What's up, Lauren? How are you?
I'm good. It was a rainy drive in, that's for sure. It was like flooding downtown. So I'm like,
really?
Why is it this much flooding for not that much rain? It was bizarre.
No, it was a lot of rain.
Well,
yeah,
but
yeah, it was a lot of rain.
Yeah, it came down.
Yeah,
but it's not like it's been raining all day.
Yeah, I thought I needed a canoe to clean out my car.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh yeah. But the good thing is the lawn got watered.
And the flowers and
everything got watered. And they say this upcoming week the temperatures are going to be pleasant in the lower to mid 70s.
Okay.
With some rain. So, that's good, Marvelous. But how you doing, Lauren?
Good. Staying corona free.
Yeah.
Happy that sports are back, and it's just so much going on with sports.
It's certainly a lot just going on.
About time.
It is about time because it's just comfortable and it's really, really cool just to sit back and watch a Cub game, watch a Sox game, watch the NBA games unfold.
Yeah.
Even a little bit of the WNBA, but it's just.
Why are you always so shady towards the WNBA? Why do you do that?
I'm not a big fan.
Just don't even say that.
Why?
We don't even want to hear you say that you're not a big fan. No.
Wait a minute.
We're getting behind the
Lauren,
WNBA.
you know our motto: real sports, real talk, just plain real. And we're being real here.
Those girls can play. Did you see one of the players got into it with Andre Iguodala? Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for us, Lauren Cox.
Basically, he said 23 was nice as opposed to her name. And, you know, her name was Powers, I believe. And she just went off on him basically and said, I got a name and this is why, you know, we're not respected at the WNBA. And, you know, I'm paraphrasing a bit. But anyway, they started to put Andre's past posts where he said he didn't want his daughter playing for the WNBA because he didn't want her to be a lesbian. So you know,
why would he say something like that?
Good question. Keep it real sports. Why would he say something?
773-763 WCPT. If you got an answer,
yeah, he said that. So then, you know, they brought that back up, and he couldn't win that battle after that.
Can you pull up that on your computer there, Marvelous One? So Andre Iguodala said, I don't want my daughter playing in the WNBA because there's too many lesbians.
And he doesn't want her to be a lesbian. Yeah. That's what he said.
Wow.
Okay.
Very interesting.
That's very, very interesting, especially with everything that's going on as far as equality and you know, social injustice and systemic racism. And everything that the NBA and WNBA have done. Adam Silver is doing a fabulous job of trying to bring unity together.
Yes.
And it's really interesting that a player is speaking out against a fellow. And I use the word loosely, but somewhat of a colleague, a partner in this big brand as far as the NBA is concerned. Because the NBA and Adam Silver is really the changes that they've made over the past year, especially prior to the pandemic, is phenomenal regarding elevating the WNBA to a more respectable league and equality for the women and the players.
Yes.
And then as far as pay is concerned, as far as paternity leave is concerned, I mean, the NBA and Adam Silver has done a fantastic job of trying to bridge the gap even before the pandemic. So you would expect and think at the end of the day, and I understand Andre Iguodala's position and his concern, but sometimes you just keep things to yourself, okay? You just keep things to yourself.
Say it again.
And it's a matter of you working together to build a brand, because at the end of the day, it is a livelihood for these women.
Yes.
Just like it is for the men. It's a livelihood. And despite how you may feel about it, you've got to I would imagine you would have to respect it and support it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't necessarily agree with it. Because at the end of the day, again, it's a matter of these.
Why would you agree with it?
Because he doesn't. There are people. There are people.
Well, no, I'm not saying him. I thought you were saying in terms of the WNBA.
Yeah, actually, he's made that comment in 2016. Is what I'm finding. You know, the comment it was a while ago. And at the time, he had a 6-year-old daughter, and he tried to clarify it a bit by it's a 4-year-old quote. That's why I couldn't find it right away.
No,
So this is what it was. Former Spartan, current WNBA star Ariel Powers to Andre Iguodala. Put some respect on my name. Because he tweeted, number 23 from the Mystics is nice. She told him, put some that was the tweet that he tweeted out. Ariel responded and said, put some respect on my name or keep this tweet to yourself. And then
But what was so
well, you know, the WNBA, they are.
She had an attitude.
I mean,
but they're just tired of being disrespected.
But she said number 23 is pretty good.
But they said she was saying that if it was male sports, they would have known his name.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's how she felt.
Well, I think she needs
and I think his past has a lot to do with it.
It may have a lot to do with it, but I think, you know, here's the thing. Regardless of whatever profession you're in.
So honestly, but that's what it is. It's the past. Like, he's got a history of saying inappropriate, foul stuff. So then when he tweeted that out, what you think now? Oh, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. No, he's got a history of saying foul stuff. He fouled.
But it's
that's why she called him out.
No, she's got to relax. She's got to relax. In my opinion, because Lauren, we were talking about
was wrong.
Was it?
Yeah, that was wrong.
He just said He just said
no. I'm saying his previous comments.
From 4 years ago.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Still said it.
From 4 years ago, I mean, obviously that comment is was no good. But number 23 is nice of the Mystics. I mean, it's like he doesn't know her name. I guess is the point that he's disrespecting her. But I obviously had no respect for the players to begin with 4 years ago. So so nothing's changed.
Yeah, here's the deal. I don't know. I don't care if you're talking about the players in the NBA. If you're talking about players in the playground, and a lot of people. And you can look at the ratings as far as the WNBA is concerned. Not too many people pay too much attention to the WNBA. 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, not many people paid much attention to the WNBA because the word on the street really is the fact that a lot of people don't want to. After you're watching the most elite athletes in the world playing above the rim, when you talk about the NBA, most people on the street, when you ask them, don't want to see a bunch of women running around playing below the rim.
Mm-hmm.
That's the perspective, and that's the truth on the streets, and you know this.
But
you know this. Nobody wants to see a woman running up and down the court.
Do your daughters play basketball?
No, they did not.
Okay, mine did. So I have a little different perspective, I guess, because I thought, you don't see, the post play and everything else that you see in the men's game, but I got to enjoy it, obviously, following my daughter, so I have a little bit more appreciation, maybe.
Listen, I love women's sports. I at one time said my daughters were in gymnastics, right? Since they were like, little girls, 6 years old. They love it. I knew about gymnastics, but not as much as I knew about, the main sports. Basketball, football, whatever. But I learned to love the sport because they were involved. Basketball, I respect women in anything they do. I say, hey, listen, I wish that if I come back in my second life, that I could be a 12-year-old girl, the gymnast. Because the things that they do, it's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And somebody said, Jerry, why would you want to come back to be a 12-year-old boy? I go, because women gymnasts, and to me, it's speechless what they're capable of doing. And Simone Biles, God bless her. Yeah. Oh my God.
And you would have seen all that.
She's an alien.
And you would have seen all that in Tokyo under other circumstances.
Simone Biles she's an alien.
Yeah.
I can't even comprehend how she's able to do what she's capable of doing in such a controlled manner. Listen, I love Michael Jordan. Everyone knows that. Simone Biles, in my opinion, as an athlete, she's got him beat.
I said
she's got him beat. She is unbelievable. So I said, hey, you know what? If I come back in my second life, I want to be a 12-year-old girl and be able to not a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old female gymnast.
Yeah, but then you'll have to go through the teen years.
No, marvelous. I just want to be a gymnast. I want to be a 12-year-old female gymnast because the things that the women do, and no offense to the male gymnasts, they're phenomenal in what they do as well. The pommel horse and the rings. I mean, my arms are big as they are, without doing that. Just imagine, Laura, if I was really doing it.
Oh my God.
But female gymnasts, they're unbelievable athletes. I dated a basketball player back in my younger years, and I respect women playing basketball because it's a skill set that is, to reach that level, you have to be very, very good and very, very talented. But as far as mainstream America is concerned, and on the playgrounds, most people don't want to see women at the highest level. They don't want to watch them play basketball because most guys say, hey, I can do half the things that they're doing, which isn't true, but that's the perception.
No, that's ridiculous. You guys have to, people are starting to tune in more, and the NBA is definitely understanding their part. You see a lot of the players had on the orange shirts, orange shirts, bringing awareness to the WNBA, and You have your new stars that are coming along. I mean, I definitely think that.
But most people don't even know who the stars are in the WNBA.
Well,
really, Marvelous.
Sabrina.
Yeah,
is well known. I think
that's one.
And she's out. Sabrina's out for.
Griner is known too. I think, among others. But you know.
That's the point. That's the point.
So you don't think it's starting to get more interest?
No.
Oh, come on, Jerry.
I'm just being honest.
Yes, we're talking about it. Hey, we talk about it every week, whether you want to or not. So I think we are starting to get more.
Nobody.
Yeah, we're talking. Hey.
Listen, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yes, I will continue to bring it up.
Well, just take it easy. Just take it easy.
See?
But as far as your perspective on, let's go to the men now. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Marvelous.
Yes.
Let's talk about the men. No offense to the women.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
I love women. I think you guys are fantastic.
I'm sure you do.
I'll tell you what the NBA as it is this week looks to me like the Proviso West Holiday Tournament or something, all on one site, which is kind of with no fans. And so it's not the same thing, obviously. And what they've done is they have the standings as it was, and each team's going to play about 8 games. It's not going to change the standings much. It's still going to Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto, LA, Clippers, Lakers at the end of it. So, they're doing the best they can with an impossible situation in all the sports, actually. I say it'll be amazing if any of them get to the conclusion. But the ones in a bubble have a better chance. It looks like baseball made a mistake by not doing the Florida-Arizona plan. Well, where they would have been all in one place.
Yep.
In the spring training sites.
Right. But the sidebar to that, the one reason why they didn't do it is the fact that these players are going to be tied up in Arizona, and we see exactly what's happening with the numbers as far as COVID is concerned in Arizona. They're shooting out the roof.
Florida's where the NBA and WNBA is. So
they're in a bubble though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They could do a bubble in Arizona and Florida.
Well, I don't know how they, and that's not the problem. The bubble is really not the problem. It's what these players, and it's suspect in the first place as far as baseball is concerned, because, you go home, and who knows, whoever you come in contact with, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend.
They're blaming on the Marlins. They're like, the Marlins are destroying the whole season.
That's the thing. In Arizona, actually, the spring training sites, if they went to their own sites, they're all in Phoenix, Scottsdale, whatever. It's all pretty close. So that would have worked. Florida would have been a bigger problem because the Florida spring training sites are more spread out.
Right.
All the way from the East Coast, Miami, the West Coast, Tampa. So that wouldn't have worked as well. But it looks as though this is, the travel is the problem. I mean, they contaminated the Philadelphia clubhouse, so nobody can play there for a week, and it's already a big mess.
So Rob Manfred, the commissioner from Major League Baseball, issued a comment or a statement last either Thursday or Friday and said, if these numbers continue to escalate, tomorrow, meaning Monday, he's going to shut everything down.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs are supposed to play in St. Louis next week, and they're already talking about that being in jeopardy because the Cardinals have some COVID.
And I think that everyone should have listened to Buster Olney, right? He said, hey, listen, it has a 5% chance of starting, 0% chance of concluding. And it seems like he's accurate because a week, what is it, a week and a half, 2 weeks now?
Yeah,
barely.
A week ago Friday.
Thursday.
A little over a week.
Yeah, and so it's getting out of hand. And the unfortunate thing about this is the fact that you're asking 20-something-year-old, well-paid athletes to abide by rules.
What's the one that didn't show up today?
Kane is Milwaukee's quit.
Cespedes.
Cespedes.
He just said, I'm not coming back.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem, is the fact that you don't know what these players are doing. Well, I mean... And
then they released a statement, we can't find them?
Right, exactly.
Like, are you kidding me?
Exactly. But the point of the matter is the fact that you can't control these players when they leave the ballpark.
No,
that's the problem.
Why they can't leave,
and that's the difference with the NBA is the fact that they're in a bubble and they can't leave. So you have some type of control as far as their movement with these ball players, and hence you see why the numbers are escalating and spiking. Hence the Marlins and spreading around the league is the fact that these players You tell them what to do when they get to the ballpark and how they conduct themselves inside the ballpark during the game. And they're not even following protocol as far as the games are concerned.
That's what I was going to say. They said Manfred basically was blaming them and telling them to stop spitting and this and that. And I'm like, that's your solution to this?
Well, that's part of it. I think Ian Happ with the Cubs said, hey, one way that we can control this, and it's what our great mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, and, of course, the governor said, put the mask on. We got the Rewind Sports 60 mask for you. Just check it out. We'll send it out to you. But the point is, Ian Happ said, hey, you know what? Wear your mask. Practice the social distancing as best as you possibly can, and do what you're expected. Wash your hands in the whole 9 yards. Stop spitting. But after he made that statement, you've seen some of the players around the league in the field with a mask on. I think there are a couple of Pittsburgh Pirate players with their mask on. There's some other players around the league wearing their mask or whatever because they simply just don't know. But many of these players they figure, hey, we're in our comfort zone as far as playing, you know, in the ballpark, and so it's business as usual.
Oh, boy.
There was one network, well, the Marquee Network, they showed Anthony Rizzo, when he came back, they showed a close-up of him, and they showed him spitting.
Yeah.
And I pointed to the television. I'm like, he's not supposed to be doing that.
I mean, at home plate, you got the catcher, the umpire, and the batter, for example. That's really close contact, I'd say. And then the players at the bases and whatnot. But there was one time that I think the bubble didn't work, and that was for Lou Williams, but we won't get
Yep, we got a report. The stripper Aries said she did get a dance. She gave a dance.
He got a dance?
Yep.
Lou Williams in the house. He got a lap dance.
He's an excellent tipper, too. Ridiculous. Really ridiculous.
We don't condone that type of behavior here in the Rewind Sports 60. But, hey, look, I told you this. And Stephen A. Smith said the same thing. There's no way. And I love my brothers. But in the NBA, them cats, they're not staying. No, it's not happening.
So good.
Hey, Lauren, there's two things they're going to be doing. One way, somehow, they're going to be smoking the weed. They're going to do it. And they're going to find them a little extracurricular activity.
Okay.
Some way, somehow, they're going to do it. You can't expect them to be locked up for 2-3 months and say, hey, you can't have no women and you can't smoke that stuff.
It's 2 months, almost.
Yeah.
It's not 3.
Listen,
well, if they go
to the championship.
A few people.
Hey, Lauren.
A few people.
Lauren. I'm here
he should know better.
Listen, Lauren, I'm here to tell you.
He's not 22.
Lauren, I'm here to
He's very much so needed, and he should be ashamed of himself. And
Lauren, I'm here
that's all it is to it.
I don't know how big your purse strings. I don't know how much you got in your bank account. I don't know any of that. It don't matter. Let me tell you something. You got a young man, 20s, 30s.
More music, young man.
With a lot of
he's 33.
Hey, even old young man. Come on now. Hey, with a lot of free time, a lot of money, and nothing to do. Hey,
it's gonna be a problem.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a problem, and may he rest in peace, John Lewis. It could be a good problem for some. Hey, but
not for the Clippers.
Let me tell you something.
Do you think that Paul George and Kawhi are upset? Like, I'll be mad.
They should be mad, but I think they understand too. Okay. Hey man, you gotta slow down. We're trying to win a championship. Hey man, I had to go get that lap dance. I had to.
No.
Lauren. No. See, everybody's missing the point. Here's the point. Lauren.
I hear you.
What the hell is a strip club doing open in the first place during a pandemic? Hello?
It's more important than a church. Come on.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's the question I said, wait a minute. Why is there a strip club open in the first place?
See?
I didn't see, but Lou Williams did.
That's where Sex Fest was in Atlanta. I'm like, maybe he got in trouble too. Weren't they in Atlanta?
Hey.
When he disappeared?
You disappeared,
this is not
all right.
Good.
She's Lauren Cox. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. It's Jerry Riles. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. We had a special guest on tap, and unfortunately, he's unavailable for us. But no worries. We keep rolling. We want you to roll with us. Our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. More in the world of sports coming up right after this short time.
You're watching the Rewind Sports 60. Go Bucks! Woo!
It's the end of the quarter. Time for a break in the action. The hottest sports panel in Chicago will get back to the fast-paced action, streaming live on Facebook Live. We're back at it after this quick timeout. So don't you dare touch that iPhone, Android, iPad, Mac, or PC. Lock it in.
TheRewindSports60.com. TheRewindSports60.com. Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
If it's Chicago sports you want, you're in the right place.
Hello, Chicago!
The Rewind Sports 60.
That's the best in the city of Chicago.
Welcome back to the Rewind Sports 60 live with the best sports panel in Chicago. Lock it in.
Please welcome Matt Dumba.
I'd like to say thank you to all the fans watching at home and all the people making a positive difference in our world right now. We appreciate you. I know none of us need to be reminded about how our day-to-day lives have been affected by the outbreak of COVID-19. So I hope the Stanley Cup playoffs can bring a little normality and peace of mind during all these times of uncertainty. I'll transition topics to a topic that is very important to me, my fellow members of the Hockey Diversity Alliance, and the NHL. During this pandemic, something unexpected but long overdue occurred. The world woke up to the existence of systematic racism and how deeply rooted it is within our society. For those unaffected by systematic racism or unaware, I'm sure that some of you believe that this topic has garnered too much attention during the last couple months. But let me assure you, it is not. Racism is a man-made creation, and all it does is deteriorate from our collective prosperity. Racism is everywhere. Racism is everywhere. And we need to fight against it. On behalf of the NHL and the Hockey Diversity Alliance, we vow and promise to stand up for justice and fight for what is right. I know firsthand, as a minority playing the great game of hockey, the unexplainable and difficult challenges that come with it. The Hockey Diversity Alliance and the NHL want kids to feel safe, comfortable, and free-minded every time they enter an arena. So I stand in front of you today on behalf of those groups and promise you that we will fight against justice. We will fight against injustice and fight for what is right. I hope this inspires a new generation of hockey players and hockey fans, because Black Lives Matter. Breonna Taylor's life matters. Hockey is a great game, but it could be a whole lot greater, and it starts with all of us.
Wow. Wow, Lauren. That was Minnesota's Matt Dumba. On Saturday, he became the first NHL player to kneel to the U.S. national anthem when he did so before the opening playoff game between the Oilers and the Blackhawks in Edmonton, Alberta. Dumba knelt at center ice while fellow Black players Malcolm Subban of Chicago and Darnell Nurse of Edmonton each stood with a hand on one of his shoulders. Several teams this week stood together during the U.S. and Canadian anthems, with some players locking arms to show solidarity. With the message "End Racism" on the video screens around him, the Wild defenseman made a passionate speech about racial injustice on behalf of the league and the Hockey Diversity Alliance. Welcome back to the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, along with the marvelous one, Dan Marver, and the lovely, talented, outstanding Lauren Cox. I got to get your reaction, Lauren. And, of course, marvelous, but Lauren, your reaction once you heard the speech.
Well, the speech, I wasn't that touch moved and inspired by it. He said a couple of justices where it's supposed to be injustice, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. But the overarching issue is on July 31st, before this, Eric Trump praised the NHL players for not kneeling during the anthem. So they're already politicizing this. So, I guess NHL decided, let's scramble and do something. And so, they have Dumba come. I know he's a part of the Diversity Council, which, it's only about 4 people on there. And I feel like we need the right people delivering these messages.
So you feel he was the wrong person?
I want to feel it.
Why was he the wrong person?
Because he was stumbling. He said it was injustice, and he said justice.
I mean, that was he made
because he's reading something, and I don't feel his heart and soul in it.
Really?
And he is white and Filipino.
Right.
Where was the black person to say it, or at least a white person
next
saying
to him?
Subban.
Yeah. And no. Well, he should have been talking. Somebody who could have really conveyed this message to that audience that needs to hear it, because, NHL and their diversity has always been a question, at least.
Okay. Marvelous.
Well, obviously it's not like the NBA in terms of the number of black players that participate in the sport. I thought that it was not shocking that Dumba spoke. I thought that his remarks were okay, and and whatnot, and he's certainly, again, First Amendment right to do whatever you want. But I think the NHL felt that that was the appropriate thing to do under all the circumstances. Fight against injustice, okay. Recognize injustice, racism. I've always said. We talked about solutions. You talked about a solution for the shootings in Chicago. What is the solution? I've actually offered legislative solutions to different things, but what is the solution? Because in people's minds, no matter what you do, there's still going to be bias. There's no way you can get rid of a bias in a person's head, unfortunately. But obviously, you don't want police killing people either.
No, I think you can get away from a bias, and a lot of times I think it comes from a personal experience. I know that there have been stories over the years where there have been neo-Nazis or skinheads, that hated, anyone that wasn't like them. They had an experience or an encounter with a minority or a black person, and it kind of opened up their eyes to a whole new different world. I'll give you a movie to look. American History X. American History X. With, what's his name? Norton?
Ed?
Yeah. Edward Norton?
Yeah.
American History X. If you haven't seen that movie, go out and get it. Get it on Netflix. Get it. Whatever you have to do, watch American History X. It's a fantastic movie. It's on Hulu. Thank you, Devin Tingle, for that. It's on Hulu. If you haven't seen that movie, watch that movie. And that character, his perspective on life changed because he had a personal experience. He went from one end of the spectrum as far as hate to the other end of the spectrum as far as caring and loving his fellow man.
Absolutely.
But because he had a personal experience, which changed his bias completely. But go on and get American History X. Oh my God, what a movie! It's a fantastic movie. I think, Lauren, I agree with you that you want something to be from the heart. You want the real passion to come from it, regardless of whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
In this situation, Black Lives Matter. You want someone who's going to express it.
Black Lives Matter.
Well,
I have to
he's a
disagree
minority
with Dan because I think a conversation can change people's mindsets. I've seen it happen.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I really feel that they need to have the right people conveying this message, because they had an audience. If it was a message delivered in a different way by a different person, maybe that could have opened up the door for some people. People were, we're so happy that he said it, and this was such a great moment. But did it really land a certain way?
Well, here's the deal. It's hard for you and I to answer that question because we are minorities. We're the reason part of the reason this movement is at the heights that it is, because of what's happened to us personally as African American men and women, but also to the African American, the black race, over 400 years of oppression. So we see it, feel it, and experience it differently. But for those such as Dan Marver and Devin Tingle, who are not minorities or black, they see it through a different lens.
Oh, sure.
Here's the surprising thing. We talk about Juneteenth. You and I, we grew up knowing about Juneteenth. Mm-hmm. But once it was brought to the mainstream America, there were many people who are not African American or black who had no idea about Juneteenth.
Absolutely.
So his message, even though for us as minorities, we kind of like, okay, thank you so much. But for the audience, which is primarily white and foreign, right? Now I'm going to say primarily white and foreign. Those were words that needed to be said and heard to be that eye-opener, so to speak. Marvelous,
couple points. You can't see it visually, but I am a minority. Number two, you have to remember that the majority of players that play in the NHL are from Canada. That's another big difference. So...
No, but I mean, as being, you're Jewish. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right? You're not African American or a person of color. Mm-hmm. You've experienced some sort of racism or some sort of prejudice. But if you're walking down the street with Lauren and I, you're not going to be mistaken as being a minority.
Yeah, clearly.
Until you express or share.
Right.
That. Mm-hmm. And that's the big difference. But being non-black, brown, when you heard the message, did it enlighten you in any way? Did it touch you in any way?
The NHL, this message we're talking about?
Yes.
No, it didn't. I mean, I didn't find it compelling. I mean, I found. Kaepernick would be more compelling, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that. But I think that it was. I don't know. It might have been that the NHL. And it was behind this. I mean, whether he's a good actor or not, his voice sort of trembled a little bit. So, I guess he's nervous. Right?
Yeah, he's nervous.
He was mixing up justice with injustice. It's like, come on. And he did like two. It wasn't that, I'm not nitpicking, but I'm saying you could tell he was reading a statement versus a black person has really experienced that, which probably was Malcolm Subane right next to him,
Right.
So that kind of threw me off.
I've been told that there are, however, some physical features that do identify Jewish people.
Yeah, there certainly are. We understand that. But here's the deal. I think that because of the audience, again, Lauren, and because of the league, this was something that's unprecedented for, a minority to speak out.
And kneel. When you first sent me the clip, I didn't know that he kneeled. And so when I saw him kneeling, I said, I definitely respect that, but my issue still stands in terms of they should have had a black person.
I'm glad that he did it. I'm glad that he did it. I'm glad that the NHL is on the forefront as far as making change and bringing more equality.
Are they really, or is this just what everybody's doing now?
What kind of change?
That's the great question. That's the great question.
Why they throw him up there with that speech that they gave him? It's like.
They had to do something.
I mean,
so you're saying he was a token representative of the National Hockey League? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that. I just said
I thought of that.
Or somebody else.
I thought of that.
Well, here's the thing.
It didn't touch Dan, so we ain't do a good job.
Well,
I mean, that particular one, there are others, but not him.
Yeah, let's go out to our phone lines. Tommy calling from Chicago is joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. Tommy, how are you, man? Are you there?
First of all, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, sir?
There you go. What's going on, Tommy? How are you?
Okay. Very quickly, I tune in to you guys now because I really enjoy the satire between the three of you and the chemistry and also the information about sports. But let's be clear about one thing. There are certain conversations that we should not even embark on or get into because it's a broken record. Ever had that song that you liked very well until they got to that same point and then it just got stuck? So what difference does it make if you kneel and when you stand up, it's still the same thing? The bottom line to where we are right now is simple. We're in a world health crisis, and that alone would bring morality back to the conscious mind of any hater to recognize and understand that, well, wait a minute, I hate this color so bad. But guess what? I can die from the same thing, too. So my point on all of this is pretty simple. You want to stop all this stuff? Cut it out. That's all you got to do. But the reason why you won't cut it out is because then you have to repair what you've done. And so one last thing. I was watching the Lakers and the Raptors, and really, guys, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get used to all of this, man. But I'm just like, really? I mean, it's like the whole camaraderie of the game where the people could spur the underdog on or give that team that was down that spark to come back and stuff. It's just like now, man. It's just like watching some guys play pickup ball in a gym, except for they all neatly dressed in NBA uniforms.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I love you guys.
Hey, real quick before you go, Tommy, thank you so much. We appreciate you and we love you too. Real quick before you go, you're a lifelong Chicagoan. What side of town you grew up on?
I grew up on the south side.
Okay, south side. So one of the most famous playgrounds in Chicago basketball history is Cole Park. All the basketball legends, they played at Cole Park because that's where you go to showcase your talents. And you say, hey, man, I can hang with the boys. You know how many people would stand at Cole Park all day long and watch the Hoopers come and go, come and go, come and go. That's what we're watching with this NBA hub down in Orlando. They don't have people in the stands. They got the virtual screen or whatever, but basketball fans are watching these Hoopers because they're the best in the world. And so I would hope that you would embrace that from a pure basketball standpoint.
Wait. Let me try to help you out.
Yes, sir.
On the west side there was a little gymnasium called the Boys Club, where all the elites went all throughout the city southwest. If you were a baller, you know where all these places were. There's one right over behind the Museum of Science and Industry where they all went.
Right.
But let me just try to be clear about one thing. See, first of all, because we as moral-minded people have not stopped and said there's something that's really, really wrong, that thousands of people are dying, and maybe we just need to pause for a moment and straighten that out. We seem to believe and think we can just go on about our lives and then come up with a new narrative. Well, this is the new this is the new that. The whole camaraderie of sports, as you said, was the ability to go and watch these guys. When I see them now, I see all of these slogans and I see all of this stuff, and I say to myself, man, really? Seriously, guys, if we want to stop what's going on, then first of all, you have to do what Michael Jackson said and be the person that looks in the mirror. And second of all, you have to recognize and understand and stop lying to yourself and try to act like because you're not black that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And again, I love you guys, and I tune in every Sunday, and thank you for letting me get that out.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, and don't be a stranger, which you certainly are.
I was going to ask Tommy did you understand the cut it out part? I kind of couldn't follow that.
Yeah, I mean, he cut it out means stop it.
Stop what?
Stop the. Well, I think he's saying stop trying to put, and no pun intended, but stop trying to put a mask on something that, you're covering up the reality of life, of where we are today. Mm-hmm. So I think with the NBA, I think with sports in general, we're trying to get back to our normal way of life. And by starting these games up, and we see how they're falling to the wayside, it's similar to putting a mask on to pretend that there's nothing real happening in this world. And I think that's what he means, say, hey, cut it out.
A distraction, maybe?
It's a distraction. So he said, hey, stop it. Let's address the issue. If I have a broken arm,
stop the games. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he wants to stop everything and say, hey, let's focus on life and get past this thing before we get back to fun and games, more or less. In my opinion, the way I interpret it. Okay. Is that what you see?
Well, absolutely. And the whole thing is money. This is what this is all about. Yeah. They're not, the sports bring everybody together. Right. No, it's economics.
It doesn't matter how many people in the stands, it's the TV.
And the advertising.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, that's all it is. And, I do definitely agree in terms of we definitely need to stay focused. We got to stay focused.
The problem is, he said cut it out. Unlike Michael Jackson, the man in the mirror, I think the big problem is, at the end of the day, it's fear. I think it's a human nature. It's fear of the unknown. And that's where we are. And that's why some people embrace it and they accept it and they welcome it. Other people, they try to run and scatter from it because fear is a powerful emotion, and it could be manipulated and manipulate people. And I think that's where we are. And that's why we're distracted and scrambling because of fear. Lauren, we didn't get to the three keys.
Yes.
You got it real quick?
Well, I mean, we talked about basically most of it, the NFL. A bunch of players, a half dozen of the Patriots basically are opting out. Eddie Goldman, Bears defense, essentially,
yes,
opted out as well. So eager to see how all of this is going to unfold with the NFL. But we see what's happening with the NBA.
We'll get it more next week. My apologies. Marvelous.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody, don't go to high school football games in 4 weeks. They're not going to play till March.
Yeah, they'll be in March. Thanks to Devin Tingle, our producer, outstanding producer. Thanks to both of you, and thanks to our callers. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. It is the Rewind Sports.
The RewindSports60.com. Relax. Reset. Rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. The RewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Welcome everyone to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update. It's a weekly podcast. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Pedromas as your guest of honor. Doctor, how are you?
Jerry, the world is less happy than I'd like, but it's a little troubling, more than a little, but I feel good. I'm blessed to feel good. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. It was a breath of fresh air this past week, Dr. Pedromas, to actually get a chance to sit down and watch some Major League Baseball, some professional sports around the country. Obviously here in Chicago, we got the Chicago Cubs and we got the White Sox on the south side, and it was very, very good and relaxing and refreshing again. And to get back to some sort of normalcy to watch both baseball teams play. And you know, it seemed like they're back to their old ways of struggling to try to get to the mountaintop, so to speak. But after a week of professional sports and, of course, the NBA kicking things off leading up to this podcast and heading into the weekend, along with golf and the WNBA, all in all, it's pretty refreshing to get an opportunity to see some sort of sports and its normalcy. And let's just hope we can continue to push forward and overcome this pandemic that we're facing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, it's funny. I watched a little of one of the games, baseball games, and it struck me how much I didn't miss the fact that there were no fans. You know, just having the guys out there playing on TV. It's kind of calming, baseball. So I thought it worked.
No, it did work, and it was interesting. I love how the marketing professionals are being creative by putting the cardboard fans out there, whether it's behind home plate. I know in Boston, the Big Monster, they have the cardboard fans out there in left field. So it's pretty cool to see how creative these guys are getting. And I do believe the Cup game on Saturday last week on the Fox broadcast that they had the virtual fans out there in the stands, sort of like a video game. So it was pretty interesting as a viewer watching from home how collectively these marketing directors across the country, across baseball, are trying to be innovative and creative and trying to keep the fans' attention watching these baseball games. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the baseball diamond, what happens on the field. And the play has been pretty decent for the most part. I know we've had some issues early on regarding pitching. Some of the pitchers have disclosed that there have been some hurt arms. I think Clayton Kershaw with the Los Angeles Dodgers had to sit out for, a game or two. There have been other pitchers around the major league. But what do you chalk it up to regarding these arm injuries, or I don't even want to say fatigue, but, the discomfort with these pitchers and their arms?
Yeah, I have a pretty specific point of view on this, actually, and I think I might have said it on here before. I think it's part, and, it's killing. It hurts baseball even before the COVID in so many ways because there's injuries, you need to carry more pitchers. And then because the pitchers can't pitch as much, you're making 5 or 6 pitching changes in a game, which aggravates the worst thing about baseball, in my opinion, which is the length. So the games go on even longer. And I've maintained for a while that, and who knows if I'm right, that the act of pitching doesn't cause these injuries. Because like we said before, going back to the Cubbies in the 60s, Bill Hands and Fergie Jenkins and Kenny Holtzman, all that stuff. Fergie Jenkins, 300 innings every year. So pitching by itself doesn't do this. And throwing as hard as you can doesn't do this. I think clearly what does it is the weight training to get stronger to try to throw harder. And I'm of the strong opinion that they should cut out most of it. I might have mentioned you on one of these others that I was at a banquet, and Fergie Jenkins was there. We talked about this, and I asked Fergie about back when he was pitching if they listed weights, and he said no. And most of those pitchers, they just don't think it's a great idea. And the thought was, it used to be thought that you needed to be loose so you shouldn't lift weights. So here's what I think. I think it's clearly because of the conditioning, and the COVID things made it worse because these guys got off the routine and they got stronger, then they had to stop, and then they're getting stronger again. But what I think the answer is just don't be so obsessed with throwing 98. And honestly, I don't know, maybe is Greg Maddux anybody's pitching coach now? Offhand?
I'm not really sure. I know his brother is, Mike. But I'm sure Greg is working with someone, but I don't know at what level.
Because, as you know, he had this famous quote where he said, Roger Clemens and I pitch exactly the same way. He just does it, I forget exactly, but he just does it as a higher rate of speed. And his point was you have control and you change speeds. So, I don't know. I think if it were me, the question is it inherently that much better to throw 96 than 92? Are these guys that much better? If you got the pitchers from today facing off against, Billy Williams and Ron Santo and Ernie Banks, would they just be destroying them more so than the pitchers did back then? Personally, I don't think so. And what I think is that everybody chases velocity. And in chasing velocity, you have to chase strength training. And I think the strength training leads exactly to what's going on. And I don't think it's going to get any better. When you get guys like a Strasburg, these guys that are throwing 100, you're just exceeding the loads that the ulnar collateral ligament in the elbow, that's Tommy John surgery ligament, can get. So I don't think there's a good answer. I think they're carrying 30 people instead of 25 now just to get more pitchers. So the way it's going is you just have just an endless supply of pitchers, and they're all going to get hurt. And so my out of the box thought is that look for the Greg Maddoxes of the world. I mean, if Greg Maddux were pitching today, would he be successful? I mean, I think he would be. So get Greg Maddux out there, make more Greg Maddoxes, ease way up on the conditioning. But the thing with that is there's an army of strength and conditioning coaches, and this is their religion, and I don't fault them. It's what they do. But I think it's a road to oblivion for pitching.
It's a very, very good point, Doctor. And, the great Tim Grover, who worked on the great Michael Jordan, his transformation of his body from basketball to baseball. And of course, many of our viewers and listeners who had a chance to check out The Last Dance about the Bulls dynasty team in the 90s, Tim Grover said it's very difficult. It was very difficult and very challenging transforming Michael Jordan's body from a basketball perspective to a baseball body. And then once he was done with that, to come back to the basketball court, the type of training he had to go through and converting his body back to that. Do you think that it's more of a business decision that these players now are putting more emphasis on weight training and lifting the weights? Because you're absolutely right. Back in the day when we were coming up, it was clearly stated that, baseball players, and especially pitchers, should not work out, should not lift weights because of the bulk and because of the stiffness. And you're going to lose some velocity, and you're going to lose, some movement on your baseball, your pitching. So it was more important and better to stay away from the weights. But nowadays, and again, from a business perspective, the players are bigger, faster, stronger. And as an owner, you want a pitcher that's going to throw high 90s, 100 miles an hour fastball, because it's going to keep the defense or your opponents off balance. How do you find the balance in today's game with these pitchers who are making an enormous amount of money, partly due on the fact that they can throw 100 miles an hour? From a business perspective, from an owner's perspective, it looks attractive to me to have 2 or 3 arms on my roster who can do that.
Well, as I said, we talked a few weeks ago, we were talking about Wilbur Wood and whatnot. Personally, the hypothesis that I would test if I were an owner, general manager, whatever, it's kind of like, things come outside of the box, Billy Ball, analytics, all that, right? Right. I would say to myself that getting pitchers that throw fast, I think you just have to be very lucky. They're going to get hurt. You're going to lose a huge part of your budget on it. I would be out there beating the hustings for Greg Maddoxes. And I would hire Greg Maddux tomorrow. And because the guy was amazing, right? And I would hire Greg Maddux tomorrow. And I would say to him, go find guys that can do what you did. And like I said, I think you put those guys in the mound now, I think they'd be just as successful as he was, maybe more, because the flip side of this, on the batter's point of view, is with all the emphasis on home runs, it's kind of an analytics thing. It's kind of like the NBA, either be at the rim or do a 3-pointer, right? So in baseball, do a home run or anyway. So the hitters now don't make contact like they used to. More strikeouts. So I think these guys are probably a little easier to set up. I mean, the one thing that a big, strong guy can do is, maybe a pop fly, maybe carries to the wall. But yeah, I would hire Greg Maddux. I would look for Greg Maddux's. I think it makes your roster more sustainable. Your pitchers aren't going to get hurt. I think they'd be just as effective. I think with the batters too. I mean, I don't know. And maybe I'm just an old guy and a purist, but I don't like games where it's just all strikeouts and home runs. I just don't. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go back to Ty Cobb when everybody's just hitting singles and doubles. But I think baseball is more enjoyable if you're getting base hits. I think the position players stay healthier. And so what I'm saying is, I think baseball is much more a technique game. I think the measurables matter less. I don't think you need to be super strong to hit or to pitch. And I would just, and then the guys do work on technique, more than they did. But I would just cut way back because it's a simple thing. Here's what happens. There's tendons. So you overload muscles and it makes the muscle stronger. That's true. But it wears out the tendons. And so what happens is that's what the shoulder is. It's rotator cuff tendonitis or ligaments in the elbow, the ulnar collateral ligament, all these things. So you're just gonna get hurt. Now I will tell you, a lot of people don't agree with me, and I think it's partially because I might have mentioned far and away the commonest kind of orthopedic sprain and strain I see in my office is as a result of working out. And we're forever changing people's workout programs. We're telling them to use less weight, more reps, all that kind of stuff. So, I just see it so commonly. But the prevailing wisdom in a lot of areas is that the answer to avoiding injuries is to get even stronger, which I don't think it is, and to work even more on flexibility, even though there's virtually no evidence that flexibility helps, So I just think that people are over-conditioned.
No, I certainly agree with you. And I guess you and I are a couple of old school type of guys because we like the fundamentals of the game, and we like, technique goes a long way. I was at, Whitey Herzog, the old school manager with the St. Louis Cardinals. He used to call the little guys, Ozzie Smith and those guys, the little fleas to get on the base path. I was a little flea. I'm the guy that's going to lay down a bunt or, get a scrap base hit, get the first base, and then try to steal second and third so one of the big boppers can knock me in. That's the way the game is meant to be played. But as we evolved in the world, and we evolved in the world of sports, and as we all know, you talk about Greg Maddux, the chicks dig the long ball back in 1998, of course. Fans dig the long ball, and they dig the strikeouts of a pitcher throwing 100 miles an hour. So that's the direction of the game. And, maybe you're onto something. Because Jerry Riles, the great owner of the Chicago White Sox, said, I will never invest, I'm just paraphrasing, but he would never invest in pitchers long term because, as you stated, Doctor, they break down, and you just can't predict how long these guys can go. So I agree with you. I side with you, and let's just hope that a lot of these pitchers, I don't know about the weight training, but let's just hope that they can be smart about their workouts, their development, their nutrition, and have longevity in the great sport of baseball. Speaking of the great sport of baseball, we're with Dr. Chad Pedromas. He is the president of Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. Of course, Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast. Rob Manfred, the commissioner for Major League Baseball, just came out a little while ago as of this podcast and stated that because of the escalating numbers regarding coronavirus throughout Major League Baseball, if players and teams don't get a hold on it, by Monday of next week, first week in August, they may shut Major League Baseball down again. And one particular reason is because of the numbers that continue to go up with the Florida Marlins. St. Louis Cardinals have a couple of players that have been diagnosed. We know the Cubs locally had their pitching coach spend 30 days in quarantine prior to the season getting started. But the numbers apparently are going up, and partly, doctors, due to the fact that these players aren't practicing social distancing and not following the protocol that's been put into place. What are your thoughts? Have you heard anything of this, and what are your thoughts regarding moving forward?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that that there's something to be said for just powering through it. So I look at it this way. When I was a kid, all you talked about was the players and who's good and who's bad, and talked about trades. And then when free agency came, it became like the salary cap. So even now, it's not only who's the best player, but, you know, who's the best salary. And I think it gives another dimension to the game. You're playing general manager. Well, I don't know. The thing of it is that, and I hope I'm not mistaken, I've tried to kind of check, but these, you know, half the Marlins roster, I guess, I haven't heard of a player yet getting seriously ill from this. And we know actually that they talk about 2-week quarantines, but we know that the contagious period is actually much shorter, probably something like 8-10 days, something like that. So what do I think? I think if you get COVID, it's like if you strain a hamstring. I think go down for, you know, you can figure it out, and this is, you know, whether it's 8 days, 10 days, 12 days, whatever, but just go down and come back. And I think they'll come right back. I don't think, in baseball in particular, where the guys are not the big, heavy guys that might be at a little bigger risk, you know, like maybe in football. So I think you let them come back, and I tell you, reward them. So you get a team where the guys are really disciplined and they keep their players, then it's kind of like an injury thing, you know. They'll have less injuries. That's what it is, I suppose. And then you just let the teams power through it, because these guys that are going down, they're going to be right back. And then when they come back, actually, the Marlins, I mean, the flip side of that is half their players are never going to get it again. So that's probably herd immunity, you know, kind of right there. So that they're going to be protected. So I say let them go down, let them come back. I think the games go on, expand the rosters, let them bring other people in, and let them play. I think it's another variable, you know, that might make it interesting. And I don't think it's a reason to shut it down. You just reward the people that are responsible. Now, if I'm wrong, and if, God forbid, people are getting seriously ill from this, then you know, then I wouldn't do it. But I try to watch it as closely as I can, and I haven't seen where anybody has. And from the epidemiology of it, I think it's very unlikely that anybody will.
Well, here's the unfortunate thing, Doctor, is the fact that many of these players, it's not necessarily them, because we certainly understand that they're in supreme top condition as far as their health is concerned, because players, it's their livelihood, and owners, they've invested in these players. So they're put in a prime situation to be, you know, the best athletes in the world on the planet. But of course, they're human, and so they can obviously, you know, contract this disease, coronavirus and COVID-19. The unfortunate thing about it, Doctor, is the fact that their loved ones. There are several players. Buster Posey for the San Francisco Giants catcher said, "Hey, you know what? I'm opting out of this season because I have young kids at home." That's the problem. It's the fact that, and we know the pitching coach again, Tommy Hatabi with the Chicago Cubs, spent 30 days in quarantine, and when he came back, he literally cried during the press conference because of the sacrifices his family had to make, and you know, based on what he was enduring with this virus. So yeah, it's not necessarily the players themselves, because it appears that they're healthy enough and strong enough to be able to offset or fight off the virus. The unfortunate thing is, as you well know, with the mask and social distancing, that they can take it home and give it to a loved one who may be more in a vulnerable state. And of course, you don't want to get to the point where, you know, it's life-threatening for a family member. So that's more of the reason behind shutting everything down, because these players are being irresponsible as far as how they're handling this.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, so what's the alternative? Are they going to go into complete quarantine? They're not. I mean, so first of all, kids. You know, the head of the FDA, Redfield, was just in a podcast, and he estimates the incidence of a school child getting this is 1 in a million. It's about 5. Mortality from school kids, this is from a quote, we're going to be putting it on Facebook actually, it's 5 or 6 times greater that a school child will die from the flu than COVID-19. So I don't think taking it home to your kids is probably much of a concern. You know, if you've got somebody who's at high risk, then by all means. Or look, if these guys are uncomfortable, I'm not second guessing anybody. You feel uncomfortable, absolutely opt out. But talking about objective medical risk, you know, and how about spouses? I mean, is the alternative to be quarantined completely? They're not going to do that. And, you know, with those of us, I mean, I've been in the office throughout, right? So most of society they go about their business. They try to be careful. I wear a mask all the time, you know, and so you just try to be careful. So I don't think a ball player going to a ballpark and being isolated most of the time is any higher risk than somebody working at a grocery store or a physician like myself or anybody else. And I don't think their families are at higher risk either. And if their children and their wives, and they're usually youngish families. If you've got a wife who's at high risk, I get it. If you're living with your grandparents, maybe you don't live with your grandparents. So, I don't think for high risk people, the linemen in football, another discussion for another day, I guess, may be different. But it's not like the alternative. It's not like baseball puts them at any greater risk. And as you've seen, why did these guys get this? Is because they went out. These guys are not going to quarantine full time, right? Most people don't. I would argue that they might be safer playing baseball because it gives them something productive to do with their time. I mean, think if you're not playing baseball, what are you going to do? Sit around the house all day? Get bored? Are they going to quarantine until we get a vaccine? So again, if you feel uncomfortable, you definitely shouldn't do it. But personally, I think for baseball in particular, plus the game is outside, maybe you do things like you don't have people sit in the dugout. I don't know. But I think if they powered through it, I don't think they'd be any worse off than if they didn't.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not a scientist. I certainly don't pretend to be one. I'm just a sports guy talking about the news and the events that are taking place in the world of sports. And it's definitely a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with you weekly about the world of sports from a medicine perspective and, injuries and, of course, COVID-19. And before we move on or before we say goodbye, Doctor, you talked about the National Football League and they're supposed to get everything started. There's no preseason. They're supposed to get everything started, the regular season, on September 10th. But there have already been at least 20 to 22 players who have opted out around the league saying that, for health precautions or health reasons, they're not going to participate in this upcoming 2020 National Football League season. Smart move by these guys or overly cautious?
I think it's a different story than baseball. And number one, I mean, you can social distance for most of a baseball game. I mean, there's some exceptions. And like I said, even in the dugout, why not just put these guys in the stands a few feet apart? Football, you can't. And furthermore, as I mentioned a week or two ago, some of these guys are so heavy, I mean, they have to be, that they are at some risk if they get it to not do well. And I've been looking at the list of the people who have opted out, and it's not, universal, and I didn't do statistics, but there is a preponderance of the big guys opting out. There's an occasional wide receiver or cornerback, but not nearly as many. So, yeah, I mean, Eddie Goldman on the Bears, notable. Yeah. So, great player, real big guy. I don't know what he weighs, 320 maybe, something like that, nose tackle. So, yeah, I think, if I were Eddie Goldman, I think maybe I'd opt out too, because I think if he gets sick, he's got a much greater chance of having something bad happen. And by virtue of the position that he plays, I think he's likelier to get it. So I get it with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it appears as if of the 22 players at this podcast taping, recording, most of them, majority of them are offensive linemen or defensive linemen or, defensive end. And obviously it's due to, the weight that they carry, but also some of the health conditions that they live with. And some, of course, with their spouses or their young kids at home, whether they just had a baby or they have a little one at home. The simple fact that they can contract it, it's a higher risk too, Doc, that they can take this home to their family members. They just figure, hey, it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's a lot of, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of finger pointing regarding the owners saying it's more about the wealth than the health of these players because, understanding that we're going through this pandemic, it appears that owners across the board, regardless of whatever league it may be, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, whatever the case may be, that the owners are more concerned about getting back to action to save some type of, to generate some type of revenue because of the contract agreements with television or what have you, and that they're less concerned about the health of these players. And that's one reason why we saw the back and forth with Major League Baseball, is because the players union said, hey, wait a minute, you guys want to get back and you're putting our guys at risk, and we got to come up with a happy medium. Is it more wealth than health regarding getting these sports and these teams back to, the playing field?
I mean, it's,
That's the question that's being thrown around.
I don't want to be cynical, but I mean, isn't it kind of always about money?
At the end of the day.
Yeah, but I'll say this to you: it's great now that they collectively bargain, though, because with the players, for the owners, of course, it's about money, but I think it is about the players too, because the fact of the matter is they're not being conscripted and forced to play. So any deal they've got, I think, of course, it's the money. Obviously, it's the money, but I think that it's as much the players being interested in the money as the owners. Because if the players said, we don't want to play, we don't care about the money, they wouldn't play. So the fact that they're playing means they care. Don't you think?
Yeah. And before we say goodbye, Doctor, of course, locally here in the Chicagoland area and across the state of Illinois, IHSA just decided that they're going to move all the fall sports, football, volleyball, soccer, to the spring, just to protect these young kids from the potential of, again, COVID-19 and coronavirus. Good move by IHSA?
That's a great move. I actually used to be an advisor to those guys, and I think the kids need to get back to class. They are in Europe. I think they need to get back to class. I think that's, and I don't think it's a risk to the kids, little risk to the teachers. I think it needs to happen. That I mentioned what the head of the government official was saying about problems of kids being home. But having said that, I think you take small risk there for good reasons. But I think for sports, I think that's a great place to cut risk. And so I think I'm glad they did it. I think it's smart. I think it's a great, get the kids in class, get them out with their education, let the sports wait. Great move, I think.
No, I think it's a great move as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they can implement this when you got, football, you got basketball, you got track and field, you got baseball, all in the, after January, 1st. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this works, because I talked about this with my family, and I said, most high school kids are 2 or 3 sport athletes. So if you're going to move football to the spring, I'm sure you got a player or two who's on both the football team and the basketball team, or they're running track or they're running baseball. So that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see how, schools can finagle and make all of this work.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think people are creative. I think it's one of the things that makes America great, actually, is that it's a pluralistic society. And you get different people trying different things instead of a top-down approach, and see what happens. But I think people are creative, and I think they'll work out good solutions.
No, I think so too. And let's just hope that we can get around this bend, around this curve here, and get back to some sense of normalcy. We got to do what we have to do, as they say when it all started. We're all in this together, Doctor. Any closing thoughts? And how can people get a hold of you if they have any questions or any interest in learning more about sports medicine?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So closing thoughts, just briefly. I think things are on a good track. I think we're going to beat it. I think we're well on the way between therapeutics, vaccine, responsible behavior. So I know I put out a newsletter, and I've had a number, and it's based on studies, and I've had a number of my patients tell me that they get so depressed reading about it. And they said, we're glad to see an optimistic approach. And I'm not Pollyannish, so I would just say this. I think we're gonna do well. Contacting me, our phone number is 847-699-6810. Email is just ortho@ISMOC, Illinois Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center .net, and we welcome calls, emails, and we've got a very good staff to field them.
You have a very good staff, and of course, you're the man that leads the charge. You're a fearless leader. Dr. Chad Padromas, the president, Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. The weekly podcast, Sports Medicine Update. Doc, it's been a pleasure. And as you can tell, I'm out on the deck, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in the state of Illinois, just outside the great city of Chicago. And let's hope we can have more days like this, because I enjoy being out here. And I obviously enjoy talking with you and learning as much as I possibly can, week in and week out, Doctor. Thank you so very much.
Hey, my pleasure, Jerry. Thanks.
We'll talk to you.
All right.
TheRewindSports60.com. Relax. Reset. Rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60. TheRewindSports60.com. TheRewindSports60.com.
Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the song with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nature into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
Do you mind talking? Do you mind talking?
This will be the day when all the promises be able to sing with new meaning. My country is sweet land of liberty of the arcade, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims divine, from every mountainside. Let freedom.
Hey, listen, it's Jerry Riles on location, Clark Avenue on the north side of Chicago, in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago. Protesters are heading north to the downtown Chicago area regarding the protest and all the energy that's here in Chicago regarding the George Floyd murder that took place in Minneapolis 8 days ago. We're right here outside of, what is it? Pasta Bowl, and I'm here, what's your name? What is it? Taylor, how are you? Hey, man, thank you so very much. We're live on Instagram, man. And I just wanted to talk with you and ask you, you guys caught my attention with the music that you're playing. Mayor Lori Lightfoot said that she is going to lift the restrictions tomorrow, June 3rd, and allow people to come on out. What are your thoughts on everything that's transpired here in the city of Chicago?
I don't really have a whole lot to say on it. Just trying to do our part to show our support for the black community, for people at large. We want to be part of the solution.
Whose idea was to play? Is a remix, Dr. Martin Luther King's famous speech in the 60s. Whose idea was to play this? That's house music, by the way, which is a product of Chicago. Whose idea was to play this?
All of us. We came up with it. We got our playlist. We got a playlist right now. It's got a lot of stuff talking about what's going on in the world today.
And what's the reaction that you've received? You caught my attention. What was your reaction?
Everybody positive.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How long have you guys been doing it so far?
Hour and a half.
And you plan on to continue to go all night?
I might take the big speakers down because the neighbors might get mad about the noise.
Oh, really?
But we'll keep it playing inside for sure.
Okay, now as far as moving to the next phase regarding the city of Chicago, and they're going to open up, how are you guys planning on accommodating customers coming to your place?
It's going to be tough here. We don't really have any outdoor seating. Our other two locations we do, so we'll definitely be ready to
Where are the other locations?
Lincoln Square and Wicker Park.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you so very much. God bless you. Stay safe. Take care. Well, folks, let me tell you something. Chicago is rallying behind each other. There's no question about it. And again, it's yours truly, Jerry Riles with the Rewind Sports 60. You can check out our show every Sunday, 6 to 7 p.m. on WCPT 820 a.m. We are streaming live, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to get a list. I love the music, the house music that's being pumped. I certainly love what's going on, and I love if we can take a look and get a turnaround. You can see people, protesters, peacefully walking down Clark Street here in Chicago on their way to their site. I understand what's going on is that everyone's meeting. They congregated just outside of Wrigley Field, I believe. They headed south on Clark Avenue, and everybody is walking toward Lincoln Park Zoo to gather. There are people, I don't know if you can make a look down all the way. They have a car full of water. They have a car full of water that they're providing for all the protesters who are heading out. The temperatures here in Chicago, the great city of Chicago, are over 90 degrees. It's about 92 degrees right now. It's a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday, June 2nd. It's extremely hot. So there are people out here who are making sure that the protesters are staying hydrated and that they're prepared for the humidity here in Chicago. If we can, I'll come up and talk with these nice people. Hi, you guys. You mind talking? We're streaming live on Instagram. What's your name?
My name is Brian.
Ryan?
Yeah.
I'm Jerry.
Jerry,
Good to
nice
see
to
you.
meet you.
What if I can ask? I see you guys have the water, but what's going on?
We just organizers of this march made a call to for volunteers for resources to hand out resources along the route because it's real hot today. So we answered that call, just came out and we're just handing out water. Got AC running in the car if people were too hot, supplies and stuff like that.
And what is your reaction to everything that's going on regarding the protest, not only here in the city of Chicago, of course in Minneapolis where it all started, but all throughout the United States? What's your reaction to it?
Well, I want action. That's my reaction. And to be honest, I don't want to draw a lot of attention to myself. I'm just looking and asking how I can help and trying to listen and work better on myself, talk to my family, talk to my friends, and try to get everybody motivated to see this when this is over too. Well, it's never over, but after this march is done, what more can we do? How can we be better allies?
No, I appreciate it, and a lot of people that are checking things out appreciate it too. And why do you say it's a long time in coming?
Well, this needed to happen. I mean, people have been rioting for years, but what has changed?
What do you say to those people? Because, it's all proclaimed to be a peaceful protest. But of course, I'm sure you guys have watched the local news as well as the national news and some international news that there have been some looters going around taking advantage of an opportunity. What do you say about that?
I'd say those are
I can't tell them how to react.
and those are derivative crimes of the greater crime of white supremacy in this country. It has a long history and caused a lot more death and violence than we've seen just these few days. And it's painful, and it's not a coherent political strategy, it's pain. And we need to answer that pain with action.
I thank you. God bless you. Keep up the good work, the good fight. Stay safe. Folks, that's Chicago at work. There's no question about it. It's the beautiful city of Chicago, the diversity here in Chicago. I'm a lifelong bred Chicagoan. I grew up on the south side. I live in the northern suburbs, but I frequent the entire city, north, south, even the east part, which is the lake, and of course the west side. And everywhere you go, Chicagoans embrace each other. There's Chicago Finest, Chicago Blue, and on their way down toward the protest site, just outside of Lincoln Park Zoo. We're going to be heading that way as well. It's the Rewind Sports 60 streaming live on Instagram. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. Long overdue, folks. You see some protesters there? Thank you. And they continue to pump out Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. house music. Let freedom ring is what you hear echoing in the skies outside Chicago's north side. And we're just walking up and down Clark Avenue. As you can hear, some people are blowing their horns in support of the protesters. We have the cyclists and Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, doing everything she possibly can, but she says she is going to open up the city partially tomorrow, June 3rd, as scheduled, as planned, in the battle against COVID-19. Now, some people are afraid and concerned about the protesters, and many of them are, as you can see, they have their mask on, and they are trying to stay protected, but many people are concerned about the spread of COVID-19 because of all the protests and the closeness and everything that's going on. We got gentlemen working here on their establishment as well, keeping things boarded up in anticipation of some potential looting that could happen. So a lot of people, we've seen a lot of businesses here in the Wrigleyville area, the Lakeview area, where they are trying to protect their businesses just in case the protests get out of hand and the looters take advantage. We're gonna wrap things up. We hope you are practicing safe welfare. You're being safe, you're being smart, but also you show your unity, your solidarity with the protesters here in Chicago and around the country. And I understand there's a revolution that is being preached and a revolution that the young generation are trying to spread the message out there, but I want everyone to know and understand the message has been heard. Now it's time to take a proactive approach toward it and not to take a disadvantage by vandalizing and committing criminal acts to get your word across, to get your message across. It's important. It's very important that it's peaceful protests. And we've seen a lot of police officers, a lot of police sergeants, a lot of police stations around the country who are agreeing with the protesters. We've seen some kneeling in Dallas, in Atlanta, in Minneapolis. We've seen a lot of police officers and police sergeants supporting the protesters. So they understand and they do hear. And it's a long, long process. We're talking about 400 years of oppression. 400 years of oppression for the black man, the black race. Now is the time. There is no question about it. But there has to be in a peaceful manner, a peaceful approach. And as you hear in the background, house music blaring with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was about peace and love. And I know there are some out there that say that didn't work. It's time for the approach of Malcolm X. Take your foot off my neck. I had a buddy of mine that said, Jerry, stop singing and start swinging. I don't condone that. I don't propose that. But I do understand. Keep following us on the Rewind Sports 60, our website, therewindsports60.com, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, LinkedIn. We have the fastest hour in sports conversation, the Rewind Sports 60. We have the best sports show in the city of Chicago. And you can check us out every Sunday, 6 p.m., WCPT 820 a.m. It's the Rewind Sports 60.
I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be be self-evident that all men are created